It's Wednesday night, and we are in our study on predestination. Without a doubt, the most wonderful message of the Bible. Without predestination, you can't go to heaven. I didn't say without understanding it. I didn't say you had to understand it in order to go to heaven. Without it, without God preordaining and predestining a family, nobody's going to heaven. And it all boils down to the fact that there's none good. The Bible says there's none righteous, no, not one. There in Romans 3 and verse 10. There's none that understandeth. There's none that seeks after God. Nobody seeks God when they're dead in their sin. They're dead. I mean, how can you seek something spiritual when you're dead? You can't. And the Bible says, and you hath he quickened there in Ephesians 2 and 1. And you hath he quickened who were dead in trespasses and sins. You were dead, he did the quickening. And he doesn't quicken according to your will, he quickens according to his will. John 5:21 says that Jesus quickens who he wills. And he quickens us. We don't do the quickening. We have nothing to do with zoopoieo is the word quicken, Z-O-O-P-O-I-E-O. And that word means to make alive. None of us have anything to do with making ourselves alive. How can a dead man make himself alive? People resent this thing called predestination so bad, yet the Bible says, whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate. I've been trying to teach that to my grandson. I said, Christopher, preach. Say, whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate. Don't matter how you say it, it's still the truth. Whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the... When I said that to him, he started giggling and laughing. I kept saying it over and over. And he just giggled and laughed when I do that. It just hit me the way he was doing it. I'm going to tell you to repent tomorrow. Is he? Okay. But he's funny. But the Bible says whom. Whom. Whom is a who. Whom is a form of who. And who is a pronoun. And pronouns take the place of nouns. And this is a people that God foreknew. Foreknew, and it refers back. For is a subordinate conjunction referring back to Romans 8 and 28. Romans 8 and 28. We know that all things work together for good, only to them that love God. Them that love God. And we said last time we preached on this, only the believer loves God, and only the elect loves God. Only God's predestinated family, because the love of God has to be shed abroad in our heart. And we keep saying two words have been ambiguously translated into this one word, love, agape and phileo. And phileo. And phileo means to have affection for, and that is not this word, or to like, and that is not this word in Romans 8 and 28. Does not mean to like. That word agape means it has to do with the commandment between a father and his family, between a king and his subjects. This is agape. This is love, that we walk after his commandments. Now that's what we have to do. Walk after commandments. That's not something I said. That's what John said. And that's not salvation by our works or by our good deeds. That's salvation by God working in us to will and to do of his good pleasure. Now, I've written something here. Let me just read this to you. You can't believe in predestination because you say you believe in it. And you can't believe in predestination because you can define it. And you don't believe in predestination because you know the Greek definition. And you don't believe in it because you come to church and agree with all the things that I'm saying. You believe in predestination because you believe predestination is a verb. It's a verb. Whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate, prohorizo. And it is a past tense verb, and it is an action verb. An action verb or a transitive verb, active or transitive. A transitive is, a transient is some guy who moves around all the time, isn't he? He stands on this street corner and begs, and he goes up to that street corner, and he gets somewhere and gets in some guy's car and goes out to somebody's house and begs some money from there and begs food over here and begs, and he's a transient. Bums are transients. But you got transient people that come through Nashville. They're guitar players, and they're piano players, and they're drummers, and they're transients. They play here, and they play there, and they play over yonder. They're transients. Anything that moves is a transient. It's if you move, and a transitive verb is an active. It's an action verb that shows action. Well, this is an action verb. That's what prohorizo is. All action verbs have to have a direct object. If it's a being verb, is, be, that always has a predicate nominative. And a predicate nominative is the same thing in the predicate. It's equal to the subject. Jim is the pastor. Pastor and Jim are one and the same. That's predicate nominative. But action verbs that are active, they're showing movement. Predestinate shows movement. It's what it shows. And it has to have a direct object. An object is a noun. It's a noun. It's a noun or a pronoun. It has to have a direct object. And this has to have an object. And the direct object receives the action of the verb. That's what it does. John threw the ball. Ball receives the action of the verb. Ball receives the action of the verb threw, and John did the throwing. And it receives the action. There has to be a direct object to this prohorizo, to predestinate. Now, you cannot, let me read this and I'll tell you what the direct object is. You cannot use words that Jim Brown teaches and say that you believe them because you can define them. This is not about defining Greek words. It's not what it's about. You can sit all day long and you can talk about the culture and the customs, the idioms and the metaphors and the figures of speech and the sayings of the first century, and that don't mean you believe anything. Anybody can spew out facts. The concept of word meanings must get a hold of your very being and change you from what you are into someone else. And there has to be a new birth in you that causes that to happen, and the change doesn't come all of a sudden. It comes very slowly. You cannot say you understand predestination. Let me put that. Understand predestination. You cannot say you understand. Remember, there's none that understands. But you cannot say you understand predestination unless you are conforming a little at a time, because you don't understand it at all. I've had so many people come here thinking just learning it's enough. You do not understand anything spiritual unless you are doing the truth and dying daily. To some degree. I didn't say that you're completely, totally dying to the flesh. Dying to the flesh does not mean that you merely go out and quote a verse to somebody and give them a word definition. That's not what death to self means. When you deny self, you contradict everything that you are and what you feel and what you think and all your opinions, and go by the book, and you humble yourself under the Word of God, and you do the things He says, and you agonize over sin, and you know you have to be hated by the world, and you say things regardless of what the cost is. And you don't try to convince the world of anything. You say, here's what God says, and here's what I'm going to show you what it is. Now, the Bible says over in John 7:17, and I've given this to you so many times that I'm just going to give it to you. If any man will do his will, you have to do the will of God, he shall know of the doctrines, whether it be of God or whether I speak of myself. The only way you can know the true doctrine of God is by doing it, not by studying it. You can go to school and study all the electrical engineering, you want to study into all of the industrial engineering, and you cannot learn industrial engineering or any kind of engineering until you go out and do it. Isn't that right? Anybody been to college? Do you learn just by going to college? No, you don't learn nothing. You say, I got a degree. They say, good, we're going to hire you. And you say, and you start doing something. They say, we don't do that here. Yes, but the book says that we don't care what the book says here. You do what we say. And then you find out that the college guys, they may know something. They may know how to teach. There's an old saying in real estate and in music, those that can't do, teach. Isn't that right? When you can't do the job, you go teach somebody. People do not recognize truth when they're living for themselves. The reason people want to argue about truth is because they will not do it. When men will not do truth, regardless of the fact that they assent to predestination and other truths, they cannot understand the truth. This thing has to get a hold of your insides, and you got to be doing it. And the more you do, the more you understand. We remember over there in Psalms 111:10, a good understanding have all they, you only understand, a good understanding have all they that do His commandments. You have to be doing the Word of God. You can't be talking about it. Talking about it don't mean nothing. Remember over there in 1 Corinthians 8:1, the Bible says that knowledge puffs up, but charity edifieth. Knowledge. Knowledge puffs up. Puffs is the word P-H-U-S-I-O-O. It means to inflate oneself and be conceited. What this is talking about is only having knowledge gives you the big head. But charity edifieth. Charity edifieth. Charity edifieth. Now I'm going to get back to the direct object here in a minute. But charity edifieth. Charity is the same word as we know that all things work together to give them that love God. And love is agape. And agape is walking in the commandments, 2 John 6. So here's what 1 Corinthians 8:1 says. Having only knowledge gives you the big head. But when you have the knowledge, you can't walk in God's commandments unless you have the knowledge, and charity is doing them. It's doing the knowledge of God. You have to have the knowledge in order to have charity, don't you? Since charity is agape, and agape is walking in His commandments, but you can't walk in His commandments unless you know them. Knowing them is one thing. Knowing them and doing them is something else. Boy, that's hard. And God has predestined us to be conformed. To be conformed doesn't look like a noun, but it is in the Greek. It's an infinitive. And an infinitive in the Greek is a verbal noun. It's a verbal noun. So what receives the action of this verb, predestinate, and people want to call me and write me, you people are idiots if you're going to call me and tell me this is not true. You're dumbbells. I can have people call me and say, here, and they write insulting letters, God wants everyone in the world to be saved. No, He doesn't. He doesn't love everybody. He loved Jacob and hated Esau before either one were born, before either one had done any good or evil. That in Romans 9:13. What's wrong with you? It's crazy. You read the Bible, give the people the parts of speech that we hate those predicate nominees. Yeah, get those out of the pulpit and out of our schools. We don't need no direct objects, no subjects and verbs and action verbs and stuff that'll send them to hell educating people like that. Stupid, stupid people that says just wants me to grab them and just slap them, you know. It's like some kid sitting in the back of an English class. I hate these predicate nominees. Would you like it if you become head of a company? Your name's John. John is the president of Union Carbide. Do you like that? You're the predicate nominative. You hate them, but you're one. Gosh, people are dumb, aren't they? You give them an education, they act like you're just flapping your jaws, saying nothing. To be conformed is a noun. It's an infinitive. It's a verbal noun. It has verbal character, but it is an infinitive. Well, how do you know that? Well, you look at the word out of your interlinear. You can get your parsing guide. Get a parsing guide. Look it up in the Greek, and then get you a first-year Greek book. It'll tell you it's an infinitive, and go into Basics of Biblical Greek by Mr. Mounts, and he'll tell you that infinitives are verbal nouns only. Now take that, because that's the truth. It just galls me. People hate definition. So you don't believe in predestination unless you are being conformed. You can't put a period at the end of predestinate. No more than you can say John through, period. John through what? You can't say John through or Bill ran what, where? Come on, finish the sentence. And you can't say whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate, period. And that's what's wrong with a lot of predestination preachers. That's what they preach. We're predestined to be conformed to the image, to the icon, the likeness. Evidently, we're not conforming. When we first come to a knowledge of Christ, Christ is birthed in us. We have little faith. Oh, ye of little faith. Oligos pistis. O-L-I-G-O-S. P-I-S-T-I-S. Puny faith. Faith has to grow. And you have an outer man, and that is self, and it's full of contention and strife and jealousy and envy and busybodying and tale-bearing and gossip. And all of this is about self, to get the attention off of others on you. And that inner man has to overtake that outer man and has to cause the outer man to die for you to understand predestination. I've been preaching predestination since 1961. And I'm seeing things about it every day I haven't seen before. Let me give you a couple other verses on this. Look here in Proverbs. Go over here go to Proverbs 2. Proverbs 2. I want you to understand, if you don't do this, you don't understand. Proverbs 2 and verse 6. I love this part of the scriptures. Well, let me back up. Let me back up a little. My son. God is only writing to his sons when he writes this book. Now, you got a couple of words for the word son in the Greek text. You have the word huios, and when you look it up in some of your books, it'll look like it looks like W-H-Y-I-O-S, huios. That's because it's U-I-O-S, and it has the diacritical mark, and this is the word sons. The diacritical mark is a breathing sound, H-U-I-O-S. If you pronounce it huios, it's like a Y, huios. It's like a Y sound. And huios is the word there that Paul used in Ephesians 1 and 5. When right after 4, he says he's chosen us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame corresponds to the likeness of Jesus. He chooses us to the likeness of Christ, or to be holy and without blame. Holy, hagios, means to be pure, single, to be without blame. That's in huios. He says, and having predestinated us unto the adoption of children. We're predestined to the adoption of children, and children cannot do what they want. Do you actually think you understand life just because you find out at about 4 or 5 or 6, well, maybe younger than that, that's your daddy and your mama? I don't know that you know what daddy and mama is. It's just a way of identifying somebody when you're 2 or 2.5. But Do you think you actually have an understanding of life because you know who your father and mother is? Do you? No. You don't have an understanding of life. You only have an understanding after you go through years of education, and it'll be an education of the paddle as well as school, as well as the doctor, as well as getting the shots, as well as... If you really love your kids, you're going to make them behave themselves. And if you make them behave, their mind's not going to get twisted like little children get twisted. I've been reading a book, and it's about... I'm going to go into this. It's a book called Till Death Do Us Part. I picked it up, I think, at Kroger's or something on the used book rack. They had them donate them. And it's about all these people who have killed their spouses, the famous people. I got pictures in here. Clara Harris, the one who ran over Dennis' husband. You've seen her on TV. David Brame, Robert Beerbaum and his wife, Dr. Richard Sharp, Mark Hacking, it's got him in here. Christian Longo, he was crazy. Lynn Turner, she killed several husbands. Pam Smart. And it's got a section in here about Scott Peterson. And I want to read this to you because this goes along with the Bible. This is exactly what the Bible says. And this is what God says. If you don't correct your children, here's what you're going to get into. See, you don't correct your children so they'll behave right now. You want them to behave after they're away from home. And if you let them have their way, they'll think they're always supposed to have their way from now on. And they'll start abusing other people, and they'll run back to their mommy. Do you know that's what turns children? I'm not trying to give you an education in homosexuality, but I really believe that's what turns most men into homosexuals. Is mothers that their babies, and won't let them grow up. And anytime anybody else tries to correct them, come here to mommy, I'll protect you, mommy. And no one can ever measure up to mommy. Not only does it twist their minds, my uncle was the most flaming homosexual I have ever seen in my life, and his mother just... Nobody can do anything to Sonny. No, nobody. And boy, he was prissy. Whoo-wee. I mean, prissy. I mean, made everybody I've ever seen look like Tarzan, you know. All the other homosexuals, you know. I mean, just the worst ever. Just come into the house like that, and we thought it was funny. We didn't know what a homosexual was. This is how much we've changed. We didn't use the word homosexual in the early 50s. And we really didn't understand. We were so unadvanced compared to this generation today. And we'd say, isn't it funny? Uncle Sonny's over there putting on Granny's clothes. We didn't know what a transvestite was. And he would get married and bring his wife and his boyfriend to church. And he'd come to our church. Excuse me, but he'd play the piano for my father. And I'm telling you, sometimes you can't tell what somebody is. But his head was messed up by his mother. And this happens. But let me just read this to you. And this is what the Bible says what happens. Talking about Scott Peterson. I was reading this, I thought, gosh, this goes along with this message on chastising your children. It says Scott was the only son of Lee and Jackie Peterson. He had several half-siblings, but Scott was the youngest. He would be described by his half-sister, Ann Bird, who had been given away by Jackie Peterson at birth as the special child or the golden boy. He could do no wrong, and the family treated him like a little prince. Such treatment gave Scott the idea that he was, in fact, special and should receive special attention and abide by a different set of rules than everyone else. Naturally, over time, Scott's sense of entitlement warped his view of the world. If his own parents did not say no to him, he figured, why let anyone else say no to him? Did you get that?
Narcissism.
That's right. He's very narcissistic. He's in love with himself. And if you do that with your kids, they'll grow up in love with themselves if you let them have their way. You can't. Then he goes on to say, this type of character defect, and this was written by a psychologist. I believe in psychology. It's just a study of the minds and how they're affected by actions of families. Don't believe in psychiatry, but believe in psychology. Psychiatry is a theory. That's something that people can't prove. That's one man's opinion. This type of character defect makes it very hard to tolerate frustration. Criminals tend to have two extreme family dynamics. Either they were terribly abused as children and therefore feel entitled to whatever they can take in later life, or they were overly indulged, giving them the idea that they deserve whatever they desire. See, that's the problem. It may look cute at home, but it ain't going to be cute when they're 15, 16, 17, 20, 21, and they think the world owes me because my mama said so, my daddy said so. Scott learned early on that he was entitled not for doing, boy, I like this. I really like this. This is what I've been preaching to y'all. Scott learned early on that he was entitled not for doing, but for being. He thought, I'm entitled because I am Scott Peterson. I am entitled because I believe in predestination. And I am a new creation in Christ, and I don't have to do anything. Isn't that the way Christians are? Before they get matured. It was his Peterson birthright. He was an aristocrat in his own mind. According to theorist Karen Hornby, the spoiled or smothered child is really dehumanized and instrumentalized. The parents love the child not really for what he or she is, but who they want or imagine him or her to be. And that's exactly true. I really like this writer. The child is there to fulfill their dreams and becomes a way to magically transform the parents' dissatisfied lives into success. They live their lives through their children. My father tried to live his through me. As a result, spoiled children often give up reality to adopt their parental fantasies to be what they think they're supposed to be. In the womb of these fantasies, they feel worthy, perfect, and entitled. Such children are unable to realistically assess their true abilities and limitations. They can't even assess themselves because they've been told something that's not true all their lives. Neither can they understand the expectations of others. And notice you said it's all because of their doing. They won't do. They won't do because they haven't been told to do. God's going to make us do. The expectations of others, the value of teamwork. They don't know teamwork. It's just about me. But see, that's what sinners are about. And perhaps most important, they do not have the ability to postpone gratification. I want it now. Give it to me, Mama. Okay, here you are. Daddy, I want it. All right, son. No, you need to spank his little tail for that. The family is the first and most important teacher of our identity and source of emotional support. It is the place where we learn to feel cared for and loved, and it forms the template for all future relationships. Therefore, as the spoiled or smothered child grows up, he almost always feels rage when people repeatedly fail to live up to his very high and unrealistic expectations because his mom and daddy did it. That's not what God teaches. You can think it's cute while your kids are young. The Bible says God scourges every son he receives. He says he whips his children, and we're supposed to spank ours and cause them and say, no, you can't have everything you want. In many ways, human development is very much like that of a tree. If a tree cannot grow in one direction, it bends and shifts its branches around whatever obstacle is in the way until it finds balance and equilibrium. Psychopathology is a result of disturbed growth. It is, you want your kids to grow up disturbed? Just don't teach them what the Bible says, and don't make them do what they're supposed to do. And that's the way they'll grow up. As the twig is bent, so shall it grow. And it's bent by the parents. It is an adaptive attempt to grow around obstacles. Scott Peterson was no different from a 2-year-old screaming to get his way. Of course, a screaming 2-year-old is far less lethal than a tantruming adult, and that's what you'll end up with if you don't spank your children, and you don't make them behave, and you don't give them everything they want. Well, this won't hurt them. Well, they can have this. Well, it won't. Well, there's a time for them to be children, time for them to play, and there's a time for you to quit letting them play. Isn't that right? I'll read one other thing here. She says, this also explains Scott's disenchantment with his impending fatherhood. He was still emotionally a child himself and felt able to tolerate. And he says, after all, he was his mother's son. Jackie Peterson was no stranger to problems and controversies. She had a difficult life and had given away a few children of adoption. We don't know the impact of Jackie's choices on her son's behavior, but it would not be much of a stretch to say that Scott got the idea from his mother, Jackie, that you get rid of anyone you don't want in your life. And that's the truth. You know what molded him? His mother and his father, and they let him do what he wanted. And the Bible says we can't do that. We are sons of God. You are not your own. You're bought with a price. I wasn't going to go into this right now, but let me give you a couple of these. Look here. Look here at, I like this word child. There's two words for there's children, which is the word huios, and then you have the word, you have this word padia, P-A-D-E-I-A, P-A-D-E-I-A. That is, let me get me a pen that writes. This is the common word child, P-A-D-E-I-A. It's the common word for child. Well, actually, it's P-A-D-I-O-N. Excuse me. P-A-D-I-O-N. This is the common word for child in the Bible. Yeah, I-O-N. And it comes from the word padia, P-A-D-E-I-A, which means to tutor or educate. Educate. And then we get the word paduo, P-A, oops, I'll get it right in a minute. I got a whole list of these. P-A-D-E-U-O, or P-A-I. D-E-U-O. Paduo means to train up, educate, or discipline by punishment. Discipline by punishment. And these are all derivatives of the same word. Now, there's an Old Testament verse, and I'll get back to where I was, but there's an Old Testament verse over here in Proverbs 22. Proverbs 22. I'm just I got so many things to say on children of God. We're made sons of God by the will of God, not by our will. We're predestined to conform to the likeness of Jesus, but we're preordained to be His sons before the foundation of the world. Nobody can preordain themselves as a son. Now in Proverbs 22 and verse 6, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Train up does not mean to take them to a Baptist Sunday school and teach them, don't be real good and be real nice and don't cuss, drink, smoke, and chew. That's not what it means. The word train up is the word kanok, C-H-A. In the Hebrew, kanok, it means to narrow them. And when you narrow a child, narrow is the way. Narrow is the way. And this is what God does to us. And narrow is the word T-H-L-I-B-O in the Greek. And that word means to crowd through a narrow opening as though you're being pressed on all sides. And that's what we're being. We're being pressed on all sides by people when we are in the narrow way. And the derivative of that is T-H, or the base word, T-H-L-I-P-S-I-S. Thlipsis is the common word every time you find the word tribulation in the Bible, in the New Testament, every time it is the word thlipsis. Paul said we must through much tribulation enter the kingdom of God. When he was stoned and left for dead outside of Lystra, they thought he was dead. They'd beat him so bad with those great big boulders. He said in Acts 14:22. And Jesus said in John 16:33, in the world you shall have tribulation. That's the way he's talking about. Here he says, now your kids, teach them to live in truth, to stand up for the truth, read the Bible in your home, talk to them, preach to them, give them the truth, show them how to stand. Show them how to stand in elementary school. You can't do that if you're just homeschooling them. You can't do that. You see, everybody's trying to keep their kids away from confrontation by homeschooling them. Everybody wants to keep them away from confrontation by putting them in some Christian, so-called Christian school that'll teach them Church of Christ doctrine or Baptist doctrine. That's what they do. Don't they, Eric? He went to one Christian school for one semester. He said, that's all I can handle. Huh? They were crazy, weren't they? He's right here in town. Now, teach your children the truth. Set them down at home and teach them. That's the place of teaching. And then teach them. Don't put them into culture shock when they're 18. Okay, now we've kept you away from the world. Here you go. Sin. Woo! You think that's not where they're going to be? That's exactly where they're going to be. Like I said, my sister put her two girls in Christian school, and if somebody said, damn or hell, she'd stick her fingers in their ears after the words were said. I'd say, Janice, good grief. They already said the word. That's dumb. Besides that, they need to learn how to say, damn, that's a good word. I like that. Katakrino, God damns people that don't repent of their sin. Teach your kid to do that. That's a good word. You got some more of those cuss words? I'll define them for you. That's what they need to learn. Huh? The older niece ended up playing the piano for the church. Sweet little girl like you never seen in your life. Ended up with 8 abortions and living with a drug dealer in Oklahoma City, and even loading his pistols with a shootout with the cops. And she was brought up in a Christian school. Yeah. You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, she was, and she don't look like it, does she, Eric? She looks like the sweetest little old Christian girl. I love to play the piano for Jesus, but give me a drug, you know. She was a sweet girl. She ended up that way because of the way my sister raised her. That's how she ended up like that. And the other girl, my sister would let her pick certain parts off of the chicken at the table, and I don't want the rest of that. Give me another one, Mama. I'd have slapped her upside the head. Cheryl needed a spanking when she was 15, 16. And she just let her have her way on anything she wanted. They grew up rotten. You let them have the way, and you don't spank them and don't make them behave, you're going to have a problem when they're 17 or 18. You're going to be getting calls from the cops. You're going to be getting calls. You see, if you let them mistreat you, they're going to mistreat the world. They're going to think they deserve something that they don't deserve. And God's not going to let us get by with that, or is he? No, sir. Paduo means to train up. Then you have the word P-A-I-S. That's the word boy. Boy is often beaten with impunity, or a girl or a child or a slave. Then you have the word pao, P-A-I-O. All these are derivatives of the word child. And pao means to hit as if by a single blow. That's what it means. Who do you think ordained this to be the way it is? God. Then you have poduates, which is a trainer, a teacher, and then you have pedagogue. Pedagogue. A pedagogue, P-A-I-D-A-G-O-G-O-S. It comes from ago. Remember ago? Meaning to lead. Lead like a child. And that's what it comes from Padion, P-A-D-I-O-N. Padion means one who leads like a child, or a servant, or it's actually the word a tutor, and it's the word used when it speaks of a schoolmaster. It means a child leader. It can be good or bad. The law is a schoolmaster over in Galatians, the 3rd chapter. The law is a schoolmaster to lead us to Christ. A schoolmaster was not the teacher in a school. A schoolmaster was a servant in the household that took the child by the hand and led them to the teacher. The schoolmaster was the man in the household, was the Holy Spirit that led us to Christ to teach us. That's what a schoolmaster was. But a pedagogue can also be someone who leads people around like a child, putting the con on them, trying to deceive them. That's also the same thing. And let's look at some of these words. And then you have the word padion, P-A-D-I-O-N, which means a childling of either sex, an infant. Padiske, a girl or female slave or servant. Piazzo, meaning to play or play as a boy plays. And I want us to look at a couple of these. Look over here in Proverbs 3. Well, I'm going to look at Proverbs 2, because the person that understands is the person that will do. He that doeth the truth cometh to the light. Not he that knoweth the truth cometh to the light. He that doeth righteousness is righteous. Not he that looketh righteous is righteous. Boy, and yet that gets to the outward appearance of a person, respecting persons, and God is no respecter of persons. It means to take hold of what you see with the eye. That's what respect of persons means. Now look here in, I'm going to read some of both of these. Look at, the only one that understands is the ones that's made to do right, and that's the child. I'll read an understanding verse, and then I'll read a verse about how you're supposed to do with your children. Look at Proverbs 2 and 6. The child that understands is the one that's corrected and scourged and spanked and caused to do right. You want the kids, if you think your kids are, you know what, a lot of people won't correct their kids. It's too much of a job. They don't want to take the time to make them do right. That's why they don't do right. Because you won't take the time. It takes too much of your time. You got to be very strict and very stern. But at the same time, you have to temper that with tenderness, gentleness. I used to spank my children in anger. And I don't believe in that anymore. Gosh, I think they should outlaw having kids till you're about 60. I don't know how we'd have them, but I think they ought to outlaw it, because you don't know what you're doing when they're young, do you? Most of us have raised our children wrong to a point. I raised Eric till he was 14, and I told my sister one day, I said, I think I'm being too hard on Eric. And I was a basket case. I was out in real estate, and I'm not making an excuse. I was a nutcase out there in real estate. I was fighting, scratching, scraping, wanting to kill somebody, and Janice said, well, of course she was too lenient on her girl. And she said, won't you apologize to Eric? And I said, oh man, I'm the grown up. So I called him into the den one day, and I thought, Eric's going to say, gosh, he's going to say, well, yeah, you ought to be sorry. That's what I thought he was going to say. I said, Eric, I'm sorry I've been treating you wrong. You know what he said? He said, I'm sorry too. And we hugged each other, and we've had a real good relationship ever since. Oh, we had some run-ins in high school, but that's always with teenagers. But have you ever... And let me tell you, step parents always think, well, if it's my kid, they wouldn't be that way. That's exactly what we thought. All of us think that. And when I started being more tender-hearted to him, I thought if it was my daughter, if he was actually my blood, he's my stepson. I've raised him since he's 4, but he's my son. I'm his father, and he'll tell you that. If A father is not one who conceives somebody, who plants the seed. That's not a father. Remember, a son does the will of his father. Isn't that right? And that's what you have to learn. You have to do. Let's read a couple of these here real quick. Look here in Proverbs. Look at Proverbs 2. Proverbs 2. I'm going to give them to. I've been wondering how to put these in here, and this is the way I'm going to do it. Look at Proverbs 2 and verse. Let's read down to it. My son, if thou wilt receive my words and hide my commandments with thee. You keep them in your heart, but you do them. So that thou incline thine ear unto wisdom and apply thine heart to understanding. But the only way you're going to understand is do. Yea, if thou criest after knowledge and liftest up thy voice for understanding, if thou seekest understanding, it says her, because her is Jerusalem in the following chapter. And Jerusalem's our mother. Remember that? If thou seek her as silver and searchest for her as for hid treasures. Well, let me just give you this. You look at chapter 3. Gosh, all this goes together. Look at verse 13. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom and the man that getteth understanding. But that's doing. For the merchandise of it is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof than fine gold. She, wisdom and understanding. She, feminine gender, pronoun. She is more precious than rubies, and all the things that thou canst desire, not to be compared unto her. Length of days is in her right hand, and in her left hand riches and honor. Length of days, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the earth. And our Father is God. And the 4th chapter of Galatians says, our mother is Jerusalem. She's the mother of us all. So this she is Jerusalem, and we are heavenly Jerusalem, the church of the firstborn. We honor one another. We honor Christ that's in each other, but not the fleshly person on the outside. And then back up here to verse 5. He says, if you seek her as silver and search for her as for hid treasures, then thou shalt understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. You'll understand. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom and knowledge. For the Lord giveth wisdom, out of his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. He layeth up sound wisdom for the righteous. He is a buckler to them that walk uprightly. He keepeth the paths of judgment and preserveth the way of the saints. Then shalt thou understand. Understanding don't come all of a sudden. That's with time, with doing. Then shalt thou understand righteousness. But wait a minute. 1 John 3:7 says, he that doeth righteousness is righteous. Doesn't it say that? The man that will do righteous is righteous. So let's put it this way. Then shalt thou understand and do righteousness and judgment and equity and yea, every good path. Now look here at Proverbs 3:11. 3:11. My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of his correction. Well, if God's going to correct his children, we're supposed to correct ours, aren't we? Yes. For whom the Lord loveth, he corrects. If you don't correct your child, you don't love him, you love yourself. That's all you love. You love yourself because you don't want to go to the trouble. It's too much labor, too much to fight. It's too much trying to get through this. For whom the Lord loveth, he correcteth, even as a father the son, in whom he delighteth. You want him to grow up. I'm going to teach Christopher. I know his daddy and mama's going to try to do the same thing, but I'm going to teach him. I'm going to teach him right. I'm going to teach him truth. I'm going to make him behave. I'm going to teach Jonathan that. I want him to grow up and say yes, sir, no, sir. We tell him, sometimes he'll say yes. And Mary will say, yes, what? And he'll say, yes, ma'am. Or I'll say yes, Papa. Yes, sir, Papa. I'll say, yes, sir, Papa. He'll say, yes, sir, Papa. I'm going to teach him to say, sir, yes, sir. Sir, yes, sir, Papa. There's nothing wrong with teaching kids to be Respectful of elders. Don't let them go around abusing people and being rowdy and carrying on. That means you love yourself. That means you're not paying enough attention to your own kids. You say, Jim, why are you saying this? Because everybody has a problem with their kids in this day and time. Everybody. Because it's a struggle. Do you think that Eric and Karen don't have trouble? How many times have I sat y'all down and talked to you? Bunch, hadn't I? And I'll talk to them some more. Watch out. We got to make them behave. We got to make them do right. It's not like I'm picking on somebody here. I'm picking on Eric. Because those are my grandkids. I don't want them to grow up wrong.
You're not coming up in the same world that we did.
No, it's crazy world. They're going to want drugs, and they're going to want cigarettes and booze and cussing. They're going to want what they want if you let them have what they have. If you give in to them, we don't need to be giving them everything they want just because it won't hurt them right now.
2 Timothy 3, in the last days perilous times shall come.
Men shall be
disobedient to parents.
Unthankful, unholy. That's right. Disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy.
Which one was that?
2 Timothy 3.
Third chapter. Read the whole chapter. That's great. Whom the Lord loves, he chastens and scourges. Well, look over here in Hebrews. Look at Hebrews. Hebrews 12. How much time do I have? I want to read all these, and I ain't even got time. I may just flip them from one to the other. I'm just going to read some of them real quick. Hebrews 12. Now, if we're sons, and God does not chasten the devil's children, I'll get David's children. God does not chasten the devil's children. You don't call the kids in from next door and say, "You kids come in and go to bed." I mean, they're going to say, "What?" You know, it says time to eat to the kids next door. Now look here. Verse 6, chapter 12 Hebrews. For whom the Lord loveth, he chastens and scourges every son whom he receives. We don't receive him. He receives us. The Lord chastens and scourges. The word scourge is the word M-A-S-T-I-X. It comes from the word mastigao, M-A-S-T-I-G-O-O. This is the verb, and this is the noun. The mastigao, I used to say, well, is that the scourge of the Jews beating somebody with a cane on their back? No, it's not. This is the Roman scourge. It was the cat o' nine tails that had pieces of glass and bone. God says, and when a man was beaten with that was a mercy. That's when God beats you with that. It's a merciful beating. It had pieces of glass and bone, and God says, I'm going to scourge my children, and you're going to behave yourself, and you're going to wish you'd have been beaten with that cat o' nine tails instead of me putting you in the hospital and nearly killing you several times, Jim Brown. You're going to do what I say, not or else. It's my way. There is no highway. It's my way, period. When John Wayne goes into the bar, he says, you can either come out walking, or you can come out feet first, but you're coming. God says you're coming. And you can do whatever you want. You can try, but you're going to do it my way. I know from experience, God will beat you within an inch of your life. He's predestined us to conform to the image of the likeness of Jesus. And it does not matter what men do to us, and it doesn't matter what God does to our bodies, as long as he can get our attention, and he will. It's not if he gets our attention. And he says he scourges, beats with a bloody beating every son he receives. It says, whom the Lord loveth. That word loveth is the verb form of agape. It's agapeo, A-G-A-P-E-O. It means who God causes to walk in his commandments, those are the ones he's going to beat. He doesn't love everybody. He loved Jacob and hated Esau. He so loved the world. All those words are agape or agapeo, the verb form. He said he so loved. So is an adverb, tells how and in what fashion God loved. He doesn't love everybody in the world. He loves his wife, the church, and gave himself for her. That's all. And you will obey him, and he will whip you. And people say, well, is God whipping me for certain sins? No, God is conforming you. He's getting rid of the sinfulness in your body, and he won't get rid of all of it. You'll have a thin layer of it by the time you get old, but you will get over most of you. before it's over with. If you live to be a ripe old age, you'll get, most of you will go away. He will take over. That inner man will take over that outer man that's full of all that contention and strife. And he'll put you, all these circles are like fiery trials. And you'll have a little thin veneer of self when you get old. You won't get rid of all of it like Milton back there. You'll have a little bit of sin left, but you won't have a whole lot because there ain't a whole lot he wants to do in sin, is there, Milton? When you're 88, you don't care that much about sin. It's difficult. It's hard work, isn't it? You don't realize how much hard work it is until you get old. You're going, man, please don't make me go down to the Starlight Club. Please, I don't want to go there. Yeah, but all these women are that. But I don't care. That's the way you feel. Now look here. Where was I? Hebrews. Look here. If you endure chastening. Now notice that word loveth, whom the Lord loves, he chastens and scourges. And he only loves his wife. And he says there's certain people here he doesn't love by the structure of the sentence. He says, if you endure chastening, God dealeth with you as with huios, with sons. And we're adopted as sons. And we're predestined to be adopted. For whose son, or what son is he? What son is he whom the Father does not chasten and scourge? He says, but if you be without chastisement, whereof all of God's children are partakers, that's what he's talking about, then are ye bastards, and you're no son of mine. The word is nothos, N-O-T-H-O-S. It means you're illegitimate, you're not mine. He's saying, if you're a bastard, you're not loved because you're not scourged and chastened. Isn't that what he's saying there? This right here is saying he does not love everybody. It doesn't it? I've never just stopped and taken time to just point that out to you real slow. Who he loves, he chastens and scourges. But if you don't get the chastening of God, you're a bastard. Therefore, he doesn't love you, huh? All, not all men in the world, all of his children. Pas, all. All that the Father giveth me shall come to me. The whole point of this whole chapter, all of this book, this wasn't written to vessels of wrath fitted to destruction. This was written to believers. All of God's children are partakers. The whole context, all, is referring back to sons, isn't it? And he says, all of the sons of God are scourged and chastened, but you're a bastard, no son of God. Therefore, he doesn't love you. If he doesn't chasten and scourge you, you don't belong to God. Isn't that what it's saying? It's exactly what it's saying. And then he goes on to say, furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh, our literal fathers, which corrected us. And we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? See, we have to be subjected to our Holy Father, the Father of spirits, in order to have eternal life. For they, looking back at their fathers of the flesh, for they verily for a few days chastened us in our entire childhood and through our adolescence. They chastened us after their own pleasure for whatever reason they wanted to. But he, our heavenly Father, for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness. Hagiasmos. Hagiasmos. It comes from the word Hagios, which is the word holy, and we're chosen to be holy and without blame in Ephesians 1 and 4. And holy means to be single or pure. What makes you single or pure, you got a mixture when you start out. You got a mixture of a whole lot of self and a whole lot of covetousness. And the trying of your faith is more precious than gold that perishes. When you put gold in a fire, no matter how hot you turn it, I read in a metallurgic book, a study of metals, that gold will not scorch. It won't burn. The hotter you make the gold, it burns out all the impurities. That's why the trying of your faith is more precious than gold that perisheth. Count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptation, knowing that the trying of your faith works patience. And let patience have its perfect work. Don't say, oh God, take away my trials. No! That's like saying, oh God, take away my gold. I pray that I won't get paid this week. And I pray that you'll cause the bank to go belly up. And God, don't pray for that. You wouldn't pray for that to happen. And He's going to burn up and make you a single substance man. And the majority of what's going to be in you is Christ. And it's not going to be self in about 30 years. Okay? In about 30 years. So be patient. It will happen. Well, Jim, how can I be like you? I don't know, get real old up real quick and get in an accident and get your neck broke, become a quadriplegic. A fella called me from Texas one time, said, well, I want to be mature real quick. I said, oh, Father, we pray that you'll break Richard's neck and put him in a car wreck. Wait a minute, Jim. I was going to make him a quadriplegic. I said, well, that'll help mature you fast. Is that what you want? That's not what you want. You got to grow up. That's like some kid 5 years old saying, it's time for me to grow up. Well, sure it is, son. Go to bed. That's what you're going to say, isn't it? Christopher's always saying, let me do that, Papa. I said, you can't do this. He's always wanting to shave me or something, you know. No. So I do shave him. I put some shaving cream all over him under his chin. I turn the razor around, shave him, get the. When he's happy as he can be, takes off and goes. I shave him every day, just about the house. See, got rid of that old heavy beard, didn't we? All right, now, where was I? All right. Where was I? Hebrews. That we might be partaker of His holiness. Now, no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous. The chastening that we're going through doesn't seem to be much fun. But grievous. What I was going through back in the 60s, late 60s and early 70s, I didn't think I was going to live through it. It was not joyous. And I've had some other real hard times in my life, but those are like living in hell with the flames just licking up all around you, you know. Nevertheless, afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of righteousness. That's why you're going through it. That's why you want to chasten your children. It's going to yield the fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. We have to be exercised. He has to do all right, get up from there. All right, let's do some side straddle hops or whatever you call them. Okay, 1, 2, give me 10, give me 20, give me 50, give me 100, Jim Brown. You're really hard to deal with. And He has to break us, doesn't He? That's what He does. Now, look back over here at, go to Proverbs 10. Go to Proverbs 10. I want to give you a few of these. If you don't chastise your children and make them walk right, you don't love them. They're going to get messed up. You think, well, what is it? Just mess them up as a kid? No, it messes them up when they're 20. That's what it does to them. Screws their head up. They think they deserve things they don't deserve, and then they start hooking and crooking people all their life. And you know, God can overcome that in us. Your head can get messed up, but He can overcome it. Sometimes it takes Him a long time to do it. Look here at Proverbs 10, verse 13. In the lips of him that hath understanding, wisdom is found, but the rod is for the back of him that is void of doing. Won't do what they're told. It says void of understanding, but understanding is doing, isn't it? So the rod is for the back of those that won't do what they are instructed to do. And God is talking about His rod, but that goes for children too. Look here at Proverbs 13. Proverbs 13:24. 24. He that spareth his rod hateth his son. Now let's put it like it is, isn't it? But he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes, or it means early. You start early in their life. You chasten them betimes. Look over here at Proverbs 20. Well, I've already gone through Proverbs 22. Look at Proverbs 23. Proverbs 23. We'll just look at some of these. Do I have any time?
30.
Huh?
30.
I got 30 minutes? Wonderful. Let's cover some of this. Look at Proverbs 23. Proverbs 23. I'm going to read a bunch of these to you. Remember, the one that understands is the one that'll do. And that's the obedient child. Without being obedient, you don't understand anything. Your kids can quote everything that mom and daddy says they're supposed to do and not do it. Can't they? Your kids know what they're supposed to do, but doing it is another thing. Knowing what you're supposed to do and knowing the Word of God is not going to be it. It has to get way down inside of you, somewhere way down in your craw. It's like, God, I got to do this. It's like going to work. I got to go to work. I don't want to go to work, but I want to pay the bills at the end of the month, but I got to go, but I don't want to go, so I go to work. I got to get there on time, because if I don't get there on time, they'll fire me, so I do it. You learn that when you're young. Why can't you learn the other things when you're young? Jim Brown. It took God a long time to beat me, to get me over me. But I wish I'd have had an instructor like you have, because I didn't. That's why I've been the most rebellious person. I'm not being humble. I was just rebellious. I wanted what I wanted. I wanted fame. I wanted fortune. I wanted me. And I was capable of having it if God had left me alone. He wouldn't leave me alone. God leave me alone, I'd get rich. Isn't that true? That's really all there is to it. Just tell God to pull his... But if he pulls his restraining off his elect, he's pulling his restraining hand off, so all things that you go through are going to work together for your good. I was telling Mike DeZago in New York about my father, and the meanest man I ever knew in my life. Just ornery. And J.D. Sumner, who sang bass for Elvis in Vegas, said, "Boy, I never met a man like your father. He is one kind of character." I said, "Isn't he? Mean as a snake." And I was just telling him, I said, and after I told him all these episodes about him pulling guns on people and hammers and ball bats and calling himself a Baptist preacher at that, having fist fights with his deacons and punching them out in Broken Bow, Oklahoma, and 14 or 15 of them having a knockdown, drag out, looked like a Roy Rogers, Gene Autry movie, all rolled up in one, and a bunch of good guys fighting the bad guys. And after it was all over with, and I told him some wild stories about Daddy. The kids get together and we tell stories about Daddy just for fun. I mean, like Jerry said, "You know what your daddy did one day with me?" I said, "What?" That's my 6'4" brother-in-law. He said, "Well, we was over at Sears and your daddy was waiting for this woman in his parking place, and another woman pulled in and stole his parking place, and he reached over in the glove compartment and pulled out a 38 police special and jumped in front of the car and pointing and screaming and yelling and cussing, saying, 'That's my parking place.'" I said, "But you know, after I got through telling all these stories, I said, I am so thankful that I had the father I had, because I wouldn't think the way I do if I hadn't of. I had to go through all that to be the man and say, I don't want to be that kind of a man." And when I was about 22 or 23, I found out the man who I thought was God didn't know what he was talking about. I said, "Oh God," and I got real scared. I said, "I don't know what I'm going to do." I didn't even know how to get a job. I didn't even know how to do anything. I was scared to even go out. And I found out that's why I have a real affinity for the brokenhearted and the bruised and the run down. I was the kid that worked in some warehouse, and I had holes in my shoes. This was before they had these kind of soles, and you had to have all these shoes resoled. I remember my feet hurting so bad, and I had holes in the bottom of my shoes, and I didn't have money. I was making $96 every 2 weeks in 1961, and believe me, that wasn't enough money to live on then. And I thought, how can I didn't know how to do anything. I garbled my words in my throat, and people would push me around. The boss said, "Don't do it that way." And I'd be going, "Yes, sir." You can't believe I was like that, but I was. But when I came out like a bullet. I said, "That's it, no more." I found out there was an intelligent guy inside. It's really funny. I hate to have to sound the praises of some high school teacher for turning him around. But Daddy told me every day, he said, "You're real stupid, you're dumb, you don't have sense, you ain't going to grow up to be nothing. I'm the only smart one in this family." And I hit an algebra class in high school. And the freakiest thing happened. I was in front of the class making all the A's. I'm thinking, is this me? I couldn't understand what was going on. I was beginning to realize I wasn't as stupid as he had told me. That's why, look out how you treat the uncomely parts of the body of Christ. You don't know who you're talking to. He may be your preacher one day. Look here in Proverbs 23. Did I read that?
No.
Proverbs 23, verse 13 and 14. 23. 13 and 14. Withhold not correction from the child, for if thou beatest him with the rod, he shall not die. It is not going to kill him. Thou shalt beat him with a rod and shalt deliver his soul from hell. That's because he won't grow up thinking he needs his way, and it's impossible for him to repent as they grow up. Mama let me have my way, Daddy let me have my way, and I think I should have my way from now on. And they'll mistreat people and they'll kill people. And they may never kill somebody, but they'll just start suckering everybody they can along the way. Yeah, my father was the youngest of 13 kids, and my grandmother, my aunts and uncles told me, said Mama, speaking of my grandmother, wouldn't let anybody touch baby Harless. That was my father's name, and said she fed him breakfast in bed till he was 18. I told him one time, I said, somebody should have kicked you in the tail as hard as they could when you were a kid. Mary told him one time they ought to pinched his head off when he was born. Of course, I wouldn't be around, you know. He was a character. I'd rather laugh at it than cry about it. Boy, I wouldn't live from 1 to 18 or 1 to 20 for $1 billion, for $48 billion. Bill Gates gave me everything he got and said, "You got to live that again." I said, "No, sir, I ain't going to live that again."
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
If y'all want to see harvest, look at Dwayne. Dwayne's just a little...
Bigger version. He looks like him. Yeah, look like Daddy.
Jim's curse.
You ain't like him at all. No, sir. You just look like him. Look at Proverbs 19. Proverbs 19. I don't know why I put this one after it, but I did. Proverbs 19 and verse 3. No, wait, that's not the right word. No, Proverbs 19:18, excuse me. 19:18. 19 verse 18. Chasten thy son while there is hope. Don't wait till he's 15 or 16. It's too late. The Catholics say, give me a child from 1 to 6 years old, and I'll have his mind for the rest of his life. That is, unless he's elect. They didn't say that, but they say they have his mind. Chasten thy son while there is hope, and let not thy soul spare for his whimpering, crying. Oh, mommy, you hurt me so bad. Well, that's tough, kid. Now, this is Bible. I didn't make this up. This is tough words. And this is what God does to us, doesn't he? To make us do right. Look at Proverbs 26. 26. Don't spare the rod because he's crying and whimpering and carrying on. Besides that, I really believe what you should do, you shouldn't yank a child up when you're mad. I believe the best thing to do is walk away and come back and say, unless you're stopping them from doing something, but if it's something you can do this, sometimes it's necessary to, when they won't stop doing something, just go over there and spank them right then. But never spank them in your anger. Sit there and calm down and think about these things. Go to them and say, son, daughter, I have to spank you. Mama has to spank you. Papa has to spank you. Daddy has to spank you. because you're not doing what's right, and Jesus is unpleased with this. And then spank them, give them the right kind of spanking, and let them know. And come back after enough time has gone by and tell them you love them, but you have to do that because that's what Jesus wants you to do in their lives. Now that's a real serious thing. I believe too many of us have done it wrong. Did I raise Debbie wrong? Oh gosh, yeah. I raised Eric wrong up to a point, and then I started getting it right. Have you raised your kids wrong? Have I been the only one here? Huh? I didn't think I had. Because most people don't have instructions this day and time how to raise their kids. I thought maybe I was by myself. Proverbs, did I say 26 and 3? 26 and 3. 26 and 3. No, that's not the right. Yeah. A whip is for the horse, a bridle for the ass, and a rod is for the fool's back. And let me tell you, your child is a fool when he thinks he knows. Isn't it? And look here in Proverbs 29. I just wanted, you don't realize how many things there are here in the Bible. Proverbs 29 and verse 15. 29:15. We're talking about God's predestinated elect family. This is what he does to his children. This is what you're supposed to do to yours. And he does this to conform us to the image of Christ. That's what predestination is about. Predestination is about accountability. It's about responsibility. You want your kids to grow up responsible, do the things right now that you're supposed to do. And if you don't do it, you're going to be sorry. I'll guarantee you'll be sorry. You'll be weeping over it when a son's calling, Mom, I'm in jail. I got caught selling a bunch of drugs to a undercover agent, and they're going to give me 15 years. You want to get a call like that? Then keep living the way you're living with your kids. Let them know you love them, but you have to spank them, you have to correct them. If you don't do it, they're going to get in trouble, aren't they?
I got a fellow I work with whose 16-year-old son's been in juvenile detention for 2 years, and he can't figure out why. I said, well, you never corrected him. You never did.
Well, that'll certainly do it, won't it? You can't have your way. I mean, Eric, I got to tell on Eric. One time he was going over here to Nannyberry Elementary, and he said, well, the teacher wouldn't let me turn in my notebook, and she didn't. Well, let me tell you something. It's not just Eric. And now he knows. He's having to face this now. He said, teacher wouldn't let me turn in my notebook. I said, oh, you got a C and you actually deserved an A, right? He said, no, sir. I won't forget that. He said, she wouldn't let me turn it in. And I said, oh, she actually really unfair to you, and she picked on you out of the class, and it's her fault that you got this C and not yours. See, I don't believe the kids. Don't believe your children. You teach them how to lie when you believe them. Call the teacher. We had a woman that come here, and everywhere she went, she'd transfer a kid. Well, they just pick on my son, and they did. And one of the ladies, she said that the teacher picked on her all the time. I knew her, and I knew her husband. They're real quiet, gentle, low key. Her kid wouldn't sit down in school, and he wouldn't sit down here in the church.
Read Proverbs 22, verse 15.
22:15. Okay, let's read that. 22, verse 15. Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction shall drive it far from him. Boy, if goodness, did you know the Bible has this much to say about it? No. It's kind of scary, isn't it? Your kids, you can say, but they're sweet. Well, they're sweet to you when they're sweet, but they're not sweet to you when they're not sweet, and when you won't correct them, and they're going to grow up, you say, but it's too late, they're already... No, it's not. It may be too late when they're 16 or 17, but you better get on it. Look here in Proverbs. Did I read 29? 29:15. 29:15. The rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself bringeth his mother to shame. You just leave your kids alone. Let them have their way. And one day you'll be so ashamed, huh? Read on down. When the wicked are multiplied, transgression increaseth, but the righteous shall see their fall. Correct thy son, and he shall give thee rest. Yea, he shall give delight unto thy soul. You know, if you correct children, correct them, constantly stay on top of them. The reason you don't like to correct them is because it takes too much time to go over and get them to do right. But after a while, when they know you mean what you say, don't do that. And they say, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. And they'll back off, and they'll grow up respecting the world and others. And they'll be calling people sir when they're 25 and 30. You really see, people don't like predestination. God has predestined us to behave ourselves and whip us and with a scourge and put us through all kinds of fiery trials to get our attention so we can understand what He means by His Word. That's exactly what we do with our children. We plan a life, and we get together and we get married and we say, let's have a baby. Okay, and here's what we're going to plan. We're going to start a college fund for it. If you do right, you're going to do these things. And we're going to start, and we're going to feed them what they need to eat and make them eat their vegetables and make them go to bed at this time. We're going to take them to the doctor and make that evil doctor give them shots when they need it and punch that needle in them and do all the things that they need to be doing so they'll grow up to be a responsible adult and a godly person. But they ain't going to grow up out of the clear blue sky unless it starts at home. And it starts at home with God. Predestination is a family thing. It's about the same thing that we do. Conforming us. He's predestined us. The people that He foreknew, the children that He foreknew as His, start off with little faith. It has to grow. And God says, you're going to do what I want you to do, and I'm going to hit you with a single blow. And He's going to do it over and over. I'm not saying take your kid and beat them black and blue. I ain't talking about that. But correct your children. Huh? That's right. Now, goodness.
Jim, my dad would go in the other room and calm down after my mother said no negotiation. She's a farmer.
Yeah.
Come in at 5:30. And he'd go down and calm down, and then he'd take me and he said, you know what I got to do, Rich? We're going to go out the back, and they'll give you spanking. That was far more terrifying.
Yeah.
Because if he had lost his temper and just started beating.
Yeah. Best thing to do is plan it out. Is to plan it out and tell the child, say you know what you have to have. Daddy loves you, but I got to do this anyway.
Yeah. And then I felt ashamed.
Yeah.
I let them down.
Yeah. Yeah. Look here in Job 33. Job 33. I was going to give the understanding verses, but I'll get back to some of them. Job 33. This is for Elihu is talking to Job. Elihu's a young preacher. In verse 19. Well, let's read down to it. Starting in 13, one of my favorite verses on God's sovereignty. Why dost thou strive against Him? This is Elihu talking to Job. For He giveth not account of any of His matters. He's going to tell you why He's doing what He's doing. That's His business. For God speaketh once, yea, twice, yet man perceiveth not. See, God's kind of like we are. We say to our children, can't you hear me? And they don't, and they're rebellious. In a dream and a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, and slumbering upon the bed, then He openeth the ears of men, those that are His elect, because the hearing ear and the seeing eye of the Lord hath made even both of them, and sealeth their instruction, that He may withdraw man from His purpose and hide pride from man. God's going to withdraw man from the purpose He set out to do. Man may plan his way, but God directs his steps. He keepeth back his soul from the pit, and his life from perishing by the sword. And here's how He does it. He is chastened. He keeps you from the pit, your soul back from the pit, from hell. Sometimes that was what it was referred to in the Old Testament. And He opens your ears, and He does that by His chastening. He is chastened also with pain upon His bed, and the multitude of His bones with strong pain, so that his life abhorreth bread, and his body dainty meat. His flesh is consumed away, that he cannot be seen, and his bones that were not seen stick out. Yea, his soul draweth near unto the grave, and his life to the destroyer. If there be a messenger with him, and an interpreter, one among 1,000, to show unto a man his uprightness. And God has taken me to that exact place. He's taken me right to my death. I thought I was dying a couple of times. Then he is gracious unto this man, and saith, deliver him from going down to the pit. I have found a ransom. What he's saying, he'll put you through all of this to make you see and make you hear and make you understand. And look over here in... look at Psalms 89. This used to be one, I used to quote this all the time when I was a young preacher. I hadn't read it in a long time. Psalms 89. God has much to say about correction. That's what predestination is about. He's predestined us to conform to the image of His Son by the fiery trials and by His correction and scourging. And His scourge, much of the time, is evil men. He picks up a sword, and David said, deliver me from the wicked, which is thy sword in thy hand. And when the Bible says, humble yourselves under the hand of God, that's a command, tapanua, T-A-P-E-I-N-O-O. T-A-P-E-I-N-O-O. Tapanua means to humble self, humble. And one of my commentaries says it means to level mountains and hills. And Babylon was destroying mountains. She was the mother of all idolatry. And self has to be leveled. And Babylon was founded on self. Let us make us a name. So we have to humble under the hand of God. And that's a command. Evil men will beat you up long enough till you just get tired of it. You say, I'm so tired of them fighting me. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. I'm going to go to God and say, Lord, you fight them. I'm tired. That's what I've done. I've learned to go to the Lord and say, Lord, I can't stand this no more. These people beat me up. Lord, I can't fight them anymore. And I refuse to fight now. People want to start a ruckus, I'm going to say, there's the door. You can't come in here and fight. You say, is that the way to do it? Yes, sirree. The Bible says we're to withdraw from people that walk disorderly. We're to have no fellowship with unfruitful works of darkness. And I'm just not going to, I will. Do you know I've only learned that in the last 5 years? Don't fight. The way you fight is you keep people around that fight. And I'm not going to do it. I'm here to teach the Bible, but not try to have to wade through a bunch of Christian believers who are fighting one another. I'm going to say, y'all quit that. You say, I'm your shepherd. I'm going to tell you like a shepherd. Stop doing that. Now look here in Deuteronomy 8. Oh, Psalms. Oh, Psalms 89. I hadn't given you that yet, have I? Psalms 89. Hold on a second. I believe it's Psalms 89. Yeah, Psalms 89, 30. Yeah, 30. Psalms 89, 30. All through Psalms 89, he's talking about Israel, establishing Israel, how they've forsaken him, all through here. And he says in verse 30, well, let's back up a little. In verse 28, my mercy will I keep for him forever, and my covenant shall stand fast with him. His seed also will I make to endure forever. And he's talking about men that walk righteous, men that cry unto him, and his throne as the days of heaven. If his children forsake my law and walk not in my judgments, if they break my statutes and keep not my commandments, then will I visit their transgression with the rod and their iniquity with stripes. And God says, that's what I'll do to you. And stripes doesn't mean literal. It means it'll come in the form of heart attack, cancer, losing one of your children. The things that you love the most. I told a drummer one time, boy, he had some hands on him. I hired a lot of really good drummers in my life. And boy, he could get a common beat going with each foot and with each hand. with a common denominator where they would counterpoint one another. And just do, and I'm going, what in the world? I've hired a lot of drummers. I haven't seen anybody do that. I said, I'll tell you what God will do one day. He'll cut your hands off and say, do some paradiddles for me. Paradiddle, paradiddle. He said, oh, don't say that. I said, that's what God will do to you. You say you believe the truth, you better do something about doing it. And it bothered him bad. Where was I? 32. Then will I visit their transgression with a rod and their iniquity with stripes. Nevertheless, I like this verse. Nevertheless, after I get through beating you, I'm not going to take my covenant away from you. Nevertheless, my loving kindness will I not utterly take from this man who belongs to me, nor suffer my faithfulness to fail. My covenant will I not break. You might break it, but I won't, Israel. He put him in Babylon, not because he's going to destroy him. He put him over there so he could cause the land to restore the nutrients, because for 70 weeks, or 70 times 7, 490 years, they'd never kept the sabbatical years, and they went after other gods. And God says, you're my children, whether you like it or not. I'm going to stick you over here in Babylon. You go over there, and don't you go to Egypt. I'll come after you. I'll have some men come after you. I'll have Babylonian soldiers come after you and beat you. You're not going to run away from me. You're mine. You can't run away from God. God's got a whip after you. I've told people, look, don't be surprised in your rebellion when you feel somebody drop an anvil on your head. That ain't me. That's God. Let me tell you, you'd rather have an anvil dropped on your head than to go through what I've gone through. God had to beat me severely to get my attention. I wanted to be a star, period. A lot of musicians say, I never wanted to be a star. That's what I wanted. A star with millions of dollars. That's what I wanted. But you know what? I'm happier than I ever thought I could be right now. My covenant will I not break, nor alter the thing that is gone out of my lips. I won't break my covenant. You're going to behave yourself. You don't, whether you like it or not, I'm going to make you like it. And you know what? Your kids like it when you raise them right. I like Eric better, and he likes me better since I've made him behave himself. I used to give him this imperative command, go take out the garbage. And now he's got his own garbage to take out. And I ask him now, please, Eric, would you do this for me? I don't. Once have I sworn by my holiness that I will not lie unto David. His seed shall endure forever, and his throne is the sun before me. And for David's sake, I'll never destroy Jerusalem. That's how much he loved David. And boy, you can read the rest of this for yourself. Goodness, we got so much of this. Look at Deuteronomy 21. Do I have any time left? 2 minutes. Let me just read Deuteronomy 21. And I can give you a copy of this. I've had copies of it, but I don't have the copy machine. Is not here. Deuteronomy 21:18. Well, we just need to read these things, don't we? 21:18. If a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and that when they have chastened him will not hearken unto them, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him and bring him out unto the elders of the city, unto the gate of his place, and they shall say unto the elders of this city, this our son is stubborn and rebellious, he will not obey our voice, he is a glutton and a drunkard, because the way you raised him. It doesn't say that, but that goes in there. And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones that he die. So shalt thou put evil away from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear. Now that's what they did with rebellious children in the Old Testament. They took them out and killed them. And they should have killed the parents with them. Because the reason he grew up rebellious is because of the way he's raised. And God just nearly kills us when we're living in rebellion against him, doesn't he? That's pretty sobering. People say, do you believe in capital punishment? I say, what? For what? For what capital sin? Cursing the king? Being a homosexual? Being an adulterer? How about being a disobedient son? Which capital crime are you talking about? See, there's a whole bunch of capital crimes in the Old Testament. Everybody wants to, the conservative Republican right in America wants to pull out the one, if man sheds blood, by man shall his blood be shed. See, if you kill a man, you die. Well, how about being a homosexual or an adulterer? We don't want homosexuals in our army. How about adulterers? You like them? You got a whole bunch of them in there. I sang in a whole bunch of military bases. I know. I mean, isn't it funny? Homosexuality is not the worst sin. God did not slay the people of Sodom and Gomorrah because of homosexuality. He slew Sodom and Gomorrah because he couldn't find 5 righteous people there. Isn't that why? It wasn't because of homosexuality. Homosexuality is just another one of the presumptuous sins that you plan. If you plan to go and to some club and see if you can pick up some woman, don't care whether she's somebody's wife or what, that's the same thing as homosexuality. It's a planned sin. It's standing right in the light and sinning right against it. That's the way Spurgeon put it. I like that. Stand in the light and you sin right against it. God says, I won't put up with that. And when your kids are standing right in the light of your instruction and ignoring you, it's time for a spanking. Isn't it? That's what David said, I sinned against the Lord only. He didn't put the blame on somebody else. Let's pray. Father, thank you for your word and truth. Help us to understand that you're spanking us just like we're supposed to spank our children, but sometimes we fail in that, but you never fail. You said you won't break your covenant with us. Cause us to behave ourselves and walk righteously. You preordained that, and we know you're going to do it. But Lord, I pray that through the instruction of truth, that the sheep here they won't be as hard-headed as I was, Lord. Taking the long way around, Lord. I sure made it hard, Lord, on me and you. I pray for the sheep. Give them strength to stand in righteousness and do what they're supposed to be doing, because we don't understand unless we're doing. That's what you said over and over again. We don't really understand predestination unless we're doing it. God, unless we're conforming and being like Jesus. We'll give you praise for all things. Continue to whip us, Lord. Thank you for the whippings. It's made us who we are. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Hope everybody ain't mad at me.
No, you have no idea. I was struggling with this exact thing.
Huh?
Every time.
Well, you got to pick your foot up and set it down. You learn to love your kids and they'll learn to love you.
Have it every time.
Well, this is a tough message, you know, when you get down to it. If you let kids have their way, they'll grow up thinking they're supposed to have their way. That's what happens. It's not that you have such a problem overcoming when they're young. It's you'll have hell overcoming when they're 20. That's pretty hard on the...
Karen was listed online and then it went out.
Went out when?
Up the corners of your mouth.
Well, see, there it needs to... Y'all need to take this home and watch this. All the parents need to. Did she? Did she hear all of it? Most of it? Pretty hard.
Huh?